Hey guys, what's up? It's Karl, and I've been using the Samsung Galaxy S21 now for the past couple days, and this is my overall experience with the latest flagship that Samsung is bringing to the table. They've released it a couple weeks earlier. They usually drop it sometime around February. We saw it come out at the end of CES. And the biggest thing to like about this device is the price point, and that's what Samsung really tried to hammer home. The S21, not the Ultra, not the Plus, the base model comes in at $799. So it's cheaper than last year, but on the flip side to that, you're actually giving up quite a bit, and maybe we'll go through those first and then we'll touch on the things that I do like about the device. The first thing that everyone talks about is the build, and that's one of the key differences between the S21 and the S21 Plus. The Ultra, which is their premium high-end flagship, that's on a class on its own. So before, the only main difference between the standard and the Plus model was the size. This year around, it's still a size difference, so 6.2 versus the 6.7. But this time around, we're also losing the actual material, and we're moving away from the premium glass. We're going to a polycarbonate, and you kind of heard that on my unboxing. I was kind of disappointed. It doesn't feel as premium. It feels lighter. It doesn't feel as solid. But in reality, I don't think that's the biggest drawback because most people rock a case on their phone to protect it, or even a skin. I'll leave my faves from D-Brand down below. You can cover the nice, shiny Thanos colorway if you want. And if that were the only drawback, I'd happily save $200 extra. I'd rock a phone in plastic, no problem. But there are definitely a couple other things that they've technically downgraded. So usually Samsung devices, you can rock a micro SD card, expand that internal storage. You are now stuck with only two options, 128 or 256, and sadly, there is no more micro SD card slot, so no more expandable storage. And a lot of people will argue maybe not the biggest drawback, because in the end, 128 gigs or the 256 option, that is quite a bit of storage. You might not even touch that, but just having the versatility, I think that's why a lot of people still love Android phones. So if it stopped there, maybe I could justify that, but there's even more, the display. So 6.2 inches, Super AMOLED. In my opinion, Samsung makes some of the nicest screens. It's pretty much edge to edge. The only small little cutout you've got is for the front-facing camera. The biggest caveat though, they are dropping the resolution to 1080p. So this is the first time you're seeing a flagship phone not having a 1440p display. And when you think back to it, I think the S6 has a higher resolution than the S21. So let that kind of sink in. You're paying near $1,000, $800 specifically for this model, and you're only getting a 1080p display. That would be totally fine if this phone came in for $500, $600. If you take a look at, say, the Pixel 5, a prime example of how you can get a 1080p screen correct, but still have the price point a bit more attractive. Obviously, we'll do a full comparison across other devices. Just keep that in mind, though, you are not getting a Quad HD display on a $1,000 phone. The final things that I'll mention, which I'm not too big of a fan of, a lot of people talk about this. You can see the box size. You no longer have a charging brick inside, so still paying premium price for not having any accessories. No headphone jack, obviously that's to be expected. Most Samsung devices do not have that, but all of those things you have to sacrifice for getting a phone in 2021 and still have to pay $800. It's a lot of money. And despite all of that, I still think the S21 is the best S21, if that makes sense. I would rather take this over the Ultra, over the Plus, still just because it has a cheaper price and you're still getting most of the benefits. I can live with a plastic back because in the end, I know that most people will throw that skin on it. I can live with a 1080p display just for the fact it has a smaller screen size. So 6.2 inches, you won't see that resolution loss as much compared to, say, the Plus model. And the fact that this display now has an adaptive refresh rate, so it'll switch actively between 48 to 120 hertz depending on what you're doing. A great addition to the screen though is actually the fingerprint sensor, and the region inside is actually increased 27%. Super handy these days. I know all of us are wearing masks, so just having that option is on point. Because the S21 has a smaller form factor, it's easier to hold in one hand. Couple that with the 4,000 milliamp hour battery, will easily last you the entire day. And of course, this phone has the latest silicone. So that's one of the key upgrades. It's got the new Snapdragon 888 chip. And you couple that with 8 gigs of RAM, technically isn't flagship worthy. A ton of other phones with either 12, some with even 16 gigs of RAM, but the performance on this is near flawless. One UI has just gotten so much better. There's no stutter or lag. Playing the most graphic intensive games, this thing absolutely crushes, as of course you would expect. And going back to the overall design, I definitely dig it. It's got this two-tone finish. Once again, this is one of my favorite colorways of the S21 model. It's got that Thanos super villain. A lot of you flaked me for calling him a superhero. I guess that depends on which side of the coin you look at that. It's definitely unique and different, and the saving grace of the S21, even though the back is made of plastic, you still got the outsides in metal, so it does give it still a premium feel when you're holding it in your hand. One of the key features that I love is the camera, and we have some updated sensors. So it's got a triple camera setup. If you want the quad, you'll have to go up to the ultra. So we've got a 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 64 megapixel telephoto. That can get all the way up to the 30 times space zoom. Once again, if you want the 100, you'll have to go up to the ultra. And I have to give Samsung huge props because they've really improved the stability and the autofocusing of that zoom range. I'll of course throw up some sample shots and I'll let you guys be the judge, but a very capable device, very decent dynamic range. Colors are on point for a Samsung phone, and if you want full testing between this and say the iPhone, you'll have to stay posted for that full comparison coming very shortly. We're still able to shoot in 8K video, which I think is super impressive, and they've got some cool features like director mode. You're able to shoot across all different focal ranges at the same time. So that's super dope. And overall, that's just kind of been my experience with the S21. Is it worth the upgrade? Honestly, if you've got the S20 from last year, it's got a higher resolution. I'd still hold on to that. There's obviously still a ton more phones coming out in this year as we've just kicked it off, so maybe hold on till then just so you can see the full comparisons. Of course, all those vids are dropping on the channel, so if you want to stick around, make sure you hit that sub button. I will, though, give props to Samsung for lowering that price bracket. $200 off across the range is pretty big. I still think, though, for all the sacrifices that we have to make, if they came in slightly cheaper, $650? 700? Under 1,000 Canadian for us who just get shafted with the exchange rate and that premium tax. I think we'd have a real winner, but curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed this vid, and of course stay posted for my next coverage if you want to see anything else around the S20 or even on the Ultra line. We'll catch you guys then. Peace.